This video is about the relationality of sex and time and the ways that that relationship is embedded in heteronormativity and capitalism under white supremacy. To start with a basic definition, temporality is the condition of having a relationship with time, or existing in relation to a sense of time. In Jane Gallup's book, Sexuality, Disability, and Aging, Queer Temporalities of the Phallus, she writes about how disability and age serve as disruptions in the temporal reality of sexuality. She uses Freudian and Lacanian theories of castration to describe the ways that sex and sexuality are temporal. I personally will not be using this same framework because there is much more to castration theory than what can be explained in a few minutes. But the lens of queer, disabled, aging theory is one that I am using as well. Though I am going to talk about queering time, this does not mean I am exclusively talking about queerness or queer sex, because both disabilities and old age are means through which the temporality of sex can be queered. To queer something means to disrupt the normative conceptions of a subject, or to think about subjects outside of and beyond the binary constructions in which we live. I will be talking about the ways that sex can be a location of queered time. Our conceptions of sex, at least in the West, are intrinsically tied to our hegemonic conceptions of temporality. Normative constructions of time center around linearity, which assumes that all lives, bodies, and existences have a knowable or tangible beginning, middle, and end. This idea is related to a Western white supremacist depiction of evolution, where white bodies are supposed to be, both implicitly and explicitly, the most evolved along a singular track of evolution. To queer temporality, therefore, is to challenge the linearity of time, to conceive time and reality as multiple and shifting. It opposes the positivist viewpoint, which posits people on a singular track towards a better future, or to the liberal goal of progress. A queered perspective of evolution would reject that there is any ultimate goal of evolution or a singular line that can be drawn throughout existences, and rather that the history of the world is full of endings and beginnings happening simultaneously. Thinking about sex more specifically as a way to queer temporality, it is important to start with the fact that in a society that is heteronormative and capitalist, all people are intended to marry their heterosexual partner and have children to reproduce the workforce. It is also important to note that both heteronormativity and capitalism are tools of white supremacy, in that the normativity of heterosexuality was established in conjunction with whiteness as the ideal human, and that capitalism was built upon and continues to exploit a racialized workforce. The timeline of marriage to children is one that relies on the linear, fixed existence of sexual bodies because it assumes that all people can and will reproduce in a particular moment in their lives. The act of sex itself is also dominated by a normative temporality, where foreplay is a means to the ultimate end goal of orgasm. The language we have in English makes this very clear. Foreplay and pre-cum both have beforeness embedded in them, and having an orgasm is also known as finishing. To queer this linear narrative is to disrupt the mandatory nature of marriage or of a singular partner, to find beginnings in the middle of a lifetime, to make foreplay the point of sex. Indeed, what is considered foreplay is rejected in non-normative sex acts because penis in vagina penetration is not always an option. Queer sex, disabled sex, and sex between old people are all sites where this positivist, progressive construction of time and of sexuality is challenged and subverted. These kinds of sex are often not reproductive or do not center around penetration as the ultimate form of sex. Queer time denies the heteronormative, white supremacist, and capitalist narrative of linear time, and instead allows for movement between beginnings and endings and a multiplicity of temporal existences.